Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to NOLA Theater Talk. My name is Alan Smason. We broadcast on Mondays and Fridays to the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, the theatercriticism.com Facebook page, and my own YouTube channel. Those of you who want to comment tonight or want to just let us know you're out there, please use this following link. That's StreamYard.com/Facebook. The idea being that we will see you and know who you are. If not, you will show up as a quote unquote Facebook user. Again, tonight is a little bit of a departure. Normally, we only talk about theater. Tonight, we're going to be having a little bit of a salute to the cultural arts, the classical arts, as it were. We have two new executive directors who are new to town, but not new to the classical arts. And I'd like to bring them both in. First off, ladies first, we're going to bring in the new executive director from the New Orleans Opera Association, Clare Burovac. Am I pronouncing it correct, Claire?
That's absolutely right.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. And also the new executive director from the Louisiana Philharmonic Orchestra, Anwar Nasir.
Hello,
Very
hello.
good. All right. So we have Anwar from the LPO, and we have Clare from the New Orleans Opera Association. So we're going to put those banners up throughout the evening as we go along. But I want to thank you first off for being here, because it's so important, I think, for people to know that New Orleans is not just interested in jazz, which it is, of course, the birthplace of jazz. And New Orleans is not just the place for blues, and New Orleans is not just the place where the Saints play. That we have a real cultural oasis here, and that the Louisiana Philharmonic Orchestra, which followed its predecessor, the New Orleans Symphony Orchestra, and the New Orleans Opera Association, which has been around for decades, and also for a time had, I don't want to call it competition, but had a sister organization, the New Orleans Opera Guild, that all of these organizations have been here. Opera came to New Orleans probably earlier than any other city in the Americas, although maybe South America might have gotten it first, but I'm not sure.
1796, Alan. We were here in 1796.
And I know that's the case, but, there are some people who question whether or not it might have come to South America first. So, I'll just say in North America for certain. And I know that the symphony orchestra actually started up a lot later than that. It was more or less a 20th century situation, but it was very, very popular. I remember as a young man being driven in a school bus over to Tulane University, and I went inside this big, massive building that I hadn't seen before, and all of a sudden there was this giant congregation of musicians, and Werner Torkanowski, David Torkanowski, the jazz player, his father, was there as the conductor, and he played Beethoven. And it was the first time I'd actually been exposed to it. It was just an amazing situation, and I always have that moment in time that's frozen for me, and the one in which I first connected to classical music. My appreciation for opera, I have to say, developed later. Even though my family had a record store, it really developed more in college. And I have to thank my friends, two brothers who were from the Chicago area, Rick and Rob Patter, who really got me into opera and really appreciating opera as the art form that I now am a big promoter for opera. But at the time, it was probably the one that I didn't appreciate the most because I hadn't been exposed to it as much. Now, my mother, on the other hand, she knew opera backwards and forwards, and she helped teach me a lot more as we go on. But as far as that goes, I know that you all hail from other areas of the country. Anwar, where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
And if it's okay, your background. How did you come into becoming an executive director? I know you worked for other organizations, but before you came to New Orleans, give us a little bit of a background, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. So my professional arts background, I was a professional dancer for about a decade, or a little over a decade or so. In Atlanta, Georgia, I was working with the Atlanta Ballet and also taking a lot of background dancing work for hip hop artists and pop artists, and doing music videos and tours and live shows. So that's where I really bust my performing chops. And when I retired as a dancer, I moved out to Los Angeles to work with the Los Angeles Philharmonic, the other LA Phil. And I was with the LA Phil and Hollywood Bowl for about 6 years. And then I moved to Omaha, Nebraska to work with the Omaha Symphony for 2 years before coming down here to New Orleans. So it's been a fun ride being both the ballet world and the dance world, and then coming over and working with orchestras.
And was New Orleans a place you were familiar with? Had you ever been here before for any other cultural events?
Absolutely, yeah. I came to New Orleans twice before. The first time I came was for the Essence Music Festival, and it happens every year, I believe, around 4th of July weekend.
Right.
And the second time I came was actually for a professional conference. I belong to an organization called the International Ticketing Association, and every January, people from all across the country, all across the world, even so, because we get some people from Australia, some people from the UK, and other places in Europe. So we had a convention here in January, just a couple of years ago.
And again, we talk about the LPO. The LPO, and at one point, I don't know if they still are, the Denver Symphony were the only two orchestras like that, right? That were self. I guess you might say that they ran their own structure. That they didn't have a
Yes.
board. They comprised their own board, but they really pulled themselves up like the phoenix from the ashes. Did they not? And
Absolutely.
when the symphony orchestra was unceremoniously killed off due to some financial restraints, etc., they all got together and said, "We're not going to let this thing die. We're gonna reform, and we're going to do this on our own." And as a result, they're around now, much stronger than ever, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we officially call it's musician governed. So the musicians are the corporate members of our board, and we're one of the few unique organizations that have that governance model. There are several others that will have a unique partnership between the musicians and staff positions, but generally there are only a few of us that are where the musicians are the members of the board and actually are the fiduciaries for the organization, which I think is really, really fantastic because they have such a commitment and a passion to keeping this organization going. And I think that it just builds for a great partnership across the board.
And Claire, before we get to you, if it weren't for the LPO, and I know earlier when we talked, I was saying that they're colleagues, but they're intricately woven between each other's performances. That if it weren't for the LPO, the Opera Association probably could not put on the kind of projects that they do, and have the same quality of work and professionalism. And that the LPO is delighted to be able to do those works as well. So I said it's not really an incestuous, but it is almost it's almost that way, because they really are sister organizations, brother organizations, whatever you want to say. That they basically, they're working with one another in a way that they are able to get. I guess you might say the feedback from one another and to be able to help each other's performance rise to a higher level than they would were they on their own. So again, yeah, go ahead. I don't want to stop you.
No, I'm just going to say that you're absolutely right. That the New Orleans Opera is nothing without the LPO. We need the LPO in order to be able to perform and bring our audiences those glorious sounds that they're used to hearing at the Mahalia Jackson theaters. So our relationship with the LPO is our most treasured collaboration and partnership, and we couldn't do it without him.
Well, we appreciate you all being here tonight. Now, as is usually the case, I always ask people on NOLA Theater Talk to bring a little something in. And I was trying to think, what kind of drink could I have that would be a classic drink, a classical drink, whatever. And the thing I could come up with was a classic martini. But this is because I'm wearing the black tie tonight. This is your typical 007 cocktail that people might like. Not a Vesper, but this is the vodka martini with a little bit of dry vermouth, and of course the obligatory odd number of the olives. You can't have a proper martini unless it has one. It better be a big one. 1, 3, 5 olives in it. So there you go. And I don't know what you all brought, but you all were given the suggestion to bring something in. I don't know what it is. If it's going to be anything alcoholic or anything that would be a little bit, less potent. But feel free to tell us. What did you bring in, Anwar?
I bought in a glass of Cabernet.
Looks like we have two wines tonight. We have a red and a white, right, Claire?
That's right.
Indeed.
Yes,
Indeed.
I have a Pinot Grigio, a nice Italian white.
That's wonderful. All right, so we have two wines and a cocktail. So again, drink up. I just appreciate you all being here tonight. And again, for those of you who are checking out this show right now as we're live streaming, a personal note that you should use the StreamYard.com/Facebook. I guess you might say link, to basically let everybody know who you are in case you wanted to say hi to either Anwar or Claire. Claire, tell us a little bit about your background, and I know that you and your husband have worked together, so I want you to mention where you met him too, and kind of what his work is with the opera as well, but not necessarily with New Orleans yet, but again, what you've done in the past.
Sure. Well, I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and I was a violinist actually in my former life. So Anwar went from ballet to symphony, and I went from symphony to opera. So it seems like we've got everything covered here. But anyway, I played in many orchestras in the Cleveland, Ohio area, and discovered opera there, and fell in love with the art form, and basically moved backstage for quite a while, and was a stage manager and a production stage manager, and did a lot of the backstage access for many, many years, both as a freelancer and as a staff member for Seattle Opera. And I moved to Portland about, 12 or 13 years ago now, and spent 11 years with the Portland Opera as the director of artistic operations before I was fortunate enough to be chosen to come to New Orleans and work here.
Yeah, and again, your husband is a stage director and has worked with operas, including, I think, was it in Portland as well?
He's the former general director of Portland Opera, but New Orleans opera audiences might know him because he directed Tosca here. I believe it was in 2002. And then he also directed Macbeth. Am I allowed to say Macbeth on this podcast, Alan?
Yes, it's theater talk, but yes, we'll allow that to happen. But if you have to, nobody ever referred to it as the Scottish opera.
No, they don't. No. So he directed Macbeth for New Orleans Opera in 2016. So he's had 2 directing engagements here in New Orleans.
Yes, and again, we hope no pressure here, but we hope that we'll be able to see him doing some direction later on. And I want not to leave you out of the loop, but I want to tell a little bit of a story. After Katrina, I got blown up to Cleveland, Ohio myself, because I got on a plane before the storm got here for Katrina. I got on a plane to go visit my sister who lived up in Solon, and I had a girlfriend at that time who was also working in the medical field as a doctor for fellowship at University Hospital. So I went up there and was looking to see, have a good time and have a good weekend, and getting ready to come back on Monday. Well, of course, on Monday, the storm came and I never got a chance to come back for 7 more weeks. It's a long story, but I decided to make Cleveland my home, at least temporarily. And I got invited to the very first production of the Cleveland Opera that year. It was in December, and it was a production of the Magic Elixir, I believe it was. The Donizetti
yes, Elixir of Love.
Elixir of Love, yeah.
Elixir of Love. And when I got there, the stage was bare, completely bare. And as the night went on, all of the principals used to bring out like the props or a table or something like that. And they were all, I'm saying, why? This is the weirdest staging I've ever seen. And it turns out, when I went out at intermission to find out what was going on, that they had rented the scenery from the New Orleans Opera Association, and they couldn't get it because it was away, and it was inaccessible. And if it hadn't been destroyed, it was in pretty bad shape. So they had to do that. This is called, thinking out of the box. So that's my story about Cleveland Opera. And again, I guess I have to ask you, how far back you worked with George Zell, obviously. So who was the conductor you were with?
Well, I actually never worked with the Cleveland Orchestra. I was in school at the time, and boy, the Cleveland Orchestra, if I had been able to get an audition or play with them, my goodness, that would have been a different trajectory to my career. But
yeah,
Doc Nanye was the conductor there when I was there most of those years. But it's a funny story, Alan. The New Orleans Opera Scenic Studio, we still rent sets and costumes, and well, not so much costumes, but sets and props to companies all over the United States, including many, many organizations here in New Orleans. And my colleague James, who works at Le Petit Theater, says that without New Orleans Opera and our Scenic Studio, we supply sets and props for almost everybody here in New Orleans. So it's a really valuable resource we have for the theater community.
And that would be James Lanius, right? Over at Le Petit. Yeah. So
yes, he's great.
So let's sort of look at what you've got to offer all those people out there who are waiting to anxiously awaiting to get back into a theater and listen to and see the orchestra and of course the figures on stage who are going to be acting in the opera. But I have to tell you that it's going to be a little bit of an uphill climb, in my opinion. That the large numbers of people that used to attend still are not necessarily going to be knocking on the door, just because they're just not comfortable in coming back out. And I know that early on in the pandemic, there was a study that was issued, and I don't know if you all got to see it, but it suggested to me that a full 10% of the people who were previous customers, subscribers to seasons for both the Philharmonic and the opera had reservations about whether or not they'd ever go back into a theater because of COVID. So that's an uphill battle that you all are going to have to get, because 10% can make or break a season, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's get into it right now. Again, for those of you who are interested in leaving a comment, we can certainly see your comments if you want to tonight. Let's get into a little bit about. First off, I'm gonna try to give a little bit of I guess you might say a shout out. So we have the banners for both the logos for the Louisiana Philharmonic Orchestra and the New Orleans Opera. So we're going to start off as best I can. Let's put up the very first production that I know is going to be happening is this weekend coming up for the opera, right? Coming up, the Maestro Robert Lyle Legacy of Excellence tribute that's going to be on, and I know that there's a very special tribute there that's going to be happening. This is the Metairie Country Club. You're going to be raising money for the opera, but also I believe there's going to be a special artist there who's going to be singing, right?
That's absolutely right. Yes. Robert Lyle has led this company for 23 years, and I am so fortunate to just be able to stand on his shoulders and continue the work that he's done for so many years. So it's only fitting that we throw a major party for Robert Lyle. So that's this Saturday night, November 6th at the Metairie Country Club. We do have tickets available on our website. Mezzo-soprano opera star Jamie Barton will be performing, and Jamie, it's not fair to say that she's an up-and-comer because she's already arrived. She's singing at all the major opera companies all over the United States and into Europe. She's won basically every competition there is to win. She really is a major artist, and so we're very, very, very fortunate to be able to present her as part of this tribute to Robert.
Now, if anybody is looking to get tickets, do they just go to neworleansopera.org and get the tickets that way?
Yes, exactly.
And again, all the Opera Association concerts generally take place at the Mahalia-Jackson, but this one is going to be at the Metairie Country Club. Do you know what the capacity is at Metairie Country Club? Have they given you an idea?
Yeah, we're going to limit this to 250 people. And as you mentioned, Alan, this is a big fundraiser for us. So there's a dinner and a pre-dinner cocktail hour and an auction and all kinds of wonderful things that are going on. But we do have a small amount of tickets for students and young opera singers who really want to come and just hear Jamie sing, which is going to be amazing. So all of that is on our website.
All right. And again, that's going to be November the 6th, correct?
That's right.
Okay, November the 6th. And then we're going to go back now to the LPO. The very first concert that you've got is coming up this Thursday, correct?
Absolutely.
November the 4th. And the lady there, now this is Aubry Oliverson, right?
Oliverson, yes.
Oliverson, yeah. Now, was she the lady who I saw at the Stravinsky?
Absolutely.
Okay, she was wonderful. In again, that was the Soldier's Tale, if you want, or
Fiddler's Tale.
de Soldat, which again, she was incredible, and I know that the maestro Carlo Prieto Jr. was very, very impressed with her, and I have a couple of pictures, etc., that I'm not showing right now, but that she's quite lovely and talented. Now, she comes from where? What's the story?
Yeah, so she just finished up her studies at the Colburn School in Los Angeles, which is how she and Carlos Miguel Prieto got connected. They did a little tour in Mexico throughout COVID, and he just thought that she was really fantastic. and wanted to bring her here to New Orleans, which we were fortunate enough to have her in a small ensemble program that you mentioned at the New Orleans Jazz Museum, that we had a double bill on 2 programs. One was the Stravinsky Soldier's Tale, and then the following day was Ellis Marsalis's Fiddler's Tale. So we're fortunate enough to bring her back again this coming Thursday to actually open our season at the Orpheum Theater. We haven't been there since March of 2019. So it feels really fantastic to be able to go back and have her with us again, opening up the season with the Beethoven Violin Concerto. So it's a really exciting time for us to get back there and have her join us.
One of my favorites, again, you had me at Beethoven, as far as that goes. And this symphony orchestra, this Philharmonic orchestra, actually does Beethoven better than many. They really seem to excel with Beethoven. And then I know that we've had a history with Stravinsky as well, with Dmitri and Maxim Shostakovich actually having had a connection with us as well. And so we do Stravinsky pretty well too. But I have to tell you that the Beethoven year in and year out has always been consistently at the high level that you expect for seeing that. Again, let's just mention that if anybody needs tickets, we mentioned NewOrleansOpera.org for the Opera Association, and it's what, lpomusic.com?
lpomusic.com, you got it.
Okay, and so anybody needs to get tickets, we'll be mentioning that through the evening. But let's go on. We're going to go right back again to the Opera Association, because guess what? Their opening, yours is on the 4th. Their opening is on the 12th, if I'm not mistaken. And for the opening of Die Walküre Act 1. And I know that some people, when they first saw Act 1, they said, what about the other acts? But, Act 1 is plenty big enough, isn't it, Claire?
It's great. It's wonderful. Yeah. This is actually a collaboration between the opera and the LPO. And we're so excited to do this really special event that we planned together, that Carlos and I sat down and talked about for the very first time. It's a real collaboration and not just the LPO being in our pit. This is Act 1 of Die Walküre by Wagner, which is often performed in concert, because it's such a standalone masterpiece, and it's a major story in and of itself. Acts 2 and 3 are great, but you're just fine with the Act 1 of Die Walküre. And we're providing the singers, and the LPO, of course, is providing the instrumentalists. And there's also a film component, which will be projected on a screen above the stage, so that we have the visual of the singers performing, and they're going to be doing action the whole time, as well as the orchestra performing. And then this film, which is providing sort of a background ambiance effect for the whole entire evening. Well,
you mentioned film, so let's go ahead and see if I can get the right one out. Let's see if this works. Let me see if this particular screen shows up. Let's let it play. And that's it. So there you have it.
That's our quick little Facebook ad.
So again, that's the very first, and you got 4 productions throughout the year. We're going to get to the other 3 in a little bit, but since we've already started, let's continue talking about the LPO. After that particular opening, and again, everybody, the 4th is the opening night, but I believe you skip a night, the 5th. Do you go to the North Shore for that next night?
We go to the North Shore on Saturday night.
And then you come back. Okay, you come back on. So you're going to be in the North Shore on the 6th. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, it used to be in the old days you would have your performance on both a Thursday and a Saturday, and then the North Shore performance would be on that Friday. But so you're going to skip the North Shore performance. It'll actually be on Saturday instead of the Thursday. Okay.
Yeah, yes, correct.
Okay. All right. And is that going to be for every one of the concerts, or just for the opening?
No, there's only 3 North Shore concerts that we're doing this year. So this is just the first one. Yeah.
Can you tell me what the others are yet, or do you? Yeah.
We're still in negotiations with some of our artists to make sure that we get everything right. But yeah.
Okay. I understand that.
You'll be able to know all of it soon.
All right. No problem. So let's move on then. Okay, after the opening, the LPO is going to go back into having another production, and that's going to be the holiday time is going to be happening, and it's in the very beginning of December, I believe you're going to be presenting the Holiday Spectacular. So
Absolutely.
starting at the upper left-hand corner and then moving clockwise, because Messiah with the colorful red hair at the bottom there, Messiah Lake will be rounding it out. So let's start at the very top and then move clockwise around there. Can you tell me who the artists are there?
Absolutely, absolutely. So right there at the top right, we're looking at, oh gosh, got to get my list up. That would be Arsène Delay, I believe, that we're looking
Okay.
at. And then we're going to move over to the right here, which would be Aurora Nealon, then Messiah Lake, and then Alexis Marceau.
Alexis is up at the very top, then in the left.
Correct.
Right. And
Mhm.
Aurora Nealon, now she's gotten some fantastic press. She plays cello, correct?
No.
What did she play? I'm trying to remember what she.
So we have three vocalists, and then Aurora Nealon is a saxophone player and a vocalist.
Saxophone. I'm sorry. Yes. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Saxophone. Yeah. Okay.
Indeed. So it's a little bit of a different. Holiday show than what we normally would have, but we feel like we wanted to make it a very New Orleans with our vocalists that we have here, because many of them haven't been able to perform at this kind of scale with the orchestra. So we really wanted to make sure that we were giving them an opportunity to get back in front of the largest audience that they possibly could. So that will be on December 3rd at 7:30 at the Orpheum Theater. So we're looking forward to it. It's going to be all of the favorite holiday tunes.
Is it just one night, December 3rd?
It's just one night only. One night only that we have. Mm-hmm.
All right, and then I believe that we are going to be going back again to the opera, because and this is going to be a different venue, is it not? With a Josephine Baker tribute that you're going to be doing, and that'll be the beginning somewhere around the middle, I guess, of January.
Yes, January 6th through 10th. This will be at the Marian Opera House, and it's actually a partnership with the Marian Opera House Ballet. We're doing a lot of partnerships this year, and it's an homage to Josephine Baker in two parts. The first half of it is an opera by the composer Thomas Chalupo, who has written this beautiful, beautiful one-woman show, one woman being Josephine, who's amazing. And then the ballet is doing a world premiere ballet as the second part of the evening, based on dances that Josephine Baker herself used to perform when she was at the height of her career.
So again, I know Dave Hurlbert over at the Marian Opera House has been really pushing a lot of the dancing and trying to do a lot of things. We honored him on several occasions, and he's also worked with a number of different composers, very young composers who have been composing new works for classical. And it's great and gratifying to see that going on, and that there is that partnership. Now they've done, I believe that they did a couple of pieces, have they not, over at the Maestro Lyle has done a couple of previous small operas at the Marian Opera House, right?
Yes, we did a production called The Blind there, and that
yep.
was about 2 or 3 years ago. And I don't believe, if I'm remembering correctly, that there were any of their dancers in that. But we did engage the Marian Opera House Ballet to perform in a production of Rameau's Pygmalion, which happened, again, probably about 2 or 3 years ago. So it's been a relationship that we've had with them for a number of years, and we're very excited to partner again.
All right. Well, again, anybody who wants to see really wonderful dance done, I know that you've had a number of people doing it in the operas back in the old days. And I say the old days, I mean the years probably in the 19th century. A lot of people would go to the opera, and they would go to see the ballet at the opera, because it was all part of what was being presented, and it was an integral part of what was being presented. Really, we don't see as much of the ballet in some of the works as we should, perhaps, but it always was, at least in the French conventions, I think, expected more than anything else.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely right. Alan, can I tell you one more thing, though?
Please,
for your audience, just to let everyone know that we actually, 2 of those 4 performances are already sold out. So if people want to see Josephine, they should probably buy their tickets soon.
Okay, well that's good to know. And again, the dates are January 6th through the 14th, with the 10th. Okay.
Yes.
Let's go back to the Philharmonic again, because the Philharmonic is going to be the next one up on as far as I can tell. And they're going to be bringing back a group from New Orleans who had great success online, virtually, right? that you all
Absolutely.
had, and that's Tank and the Bangas.
Tank and the
And
Bangas, yes.
and what in the world? I mean, who would have thought that Tank and the Bangas would be performing with the orchestra? But I saw the show, and it
Mhm.
was phenomenal. It was one of the more memorable things I remember from the pandemic. I said, this is a clash of culture that shows a little bit of the side of New Orleans that people don't get to see on a regular basis.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we, work with a wonderful arranger, and we work with the band to actually orchestrate their essentially some of their biggest hits in their catalog. And we're going to add a few more, and we're going to have a brand new show on January 14th at the Orpheum Theater. There might be some special guests that I hope to be able to announce soon. But it's a really exciting opportunity for them and for us. I mean, obviously we recorded it last year, and it was viewed all across the country. The New York Times picked it up as one of the things to watch. So I would say that this one is going to be even more special because it's going to be in person, and people are going to be able to come in and sing along, and it's going to be a really, really special night. So we're excited to be able to partner just with a local band and highlight them. I think that that's one of the big through lines that we like to have as an orchestra, is really highlight our own talent in our backyard. So really, it's a special time for us and a special time for them to get to play with their hometown orchestra, which I think is really, really special.
And the last couple of shows that we're going to talk about, unfortunately, we don't have the whole season from the Louisiana Philharmonic Orchestra. You've got lots of things on your season, I know, but I did want to let everybody know that even though the last two things I'm going to show up are going to be from the opera, that you've got a full season, and that anybody needs to know about what's going to be out and available to go to lpomusic.com. Let's check out
Absolutely.
again the opera again one more time. We're moving into 2022, and tell me a little bit behind this gala concert. If you don't mind, Claire, what was the idea behind this?
Absolutely. Well, the chorus is such an integral part of the opera. Choruses are in almost every production that we do, and they're made up of our local the community members, your neighbors, your baker, your teacher, your doctor are all part of our chorus. And like what Anwar was saying earlier, our chorus has not been on stage since February of 2020. And by the time we get to this concert, it will have been 2 years since our chorus has had the opportunity to perform. So we're so excited to welcome them back. And we wanted to present a celebratory evening that really featured them and has a lot of the greatest choruses that you all know and love, so we can hear them all in performance. And Robert Lyle, our General Director Emeritus, will be conducting that concert. And it'll be a great evening with guest soloists and great opera choruses.
And I remember talking to people like at various houses of worship, et cetera, during the pandemic, that people would start to come back to the various spiritual centers, and they could assemble as a group, but they weren't allowed to sing because
That's right.
singing apparently spreads the droplets, and
Yes.
is a bit of a problem. So even when you could assemble, you couldn't sing, and it was hurting people's hearts in many ways, I know. And I remember also talking to somebody from the Philharmonic. I'm not quite sure who it was. We were discussing the fact that the brass players, Anwar, that the brass players, even if you had them like put behind a pane, if you will, of glass or some sort of acrylic barrier, that even if they had that when they played their brass instruments, that the droplets would be suspended through the air and would be essentially permeating the entire hall within 30 minutes. That it didn't matter if you had a barrier or not. So a lot
Absolutely.
of the brass people could not play their instruments either.
Mhm.
Wasn't a problem for the strings though, was it?
No, it's not a problem for the for the strings, whether the high or the low strings. But yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, and I'm sure that Claire can attest to this. Because what we do by nature is just, it's a large gathering of people that come together to make art happen. And of course, for the audience as well, that's it's a part of the communal experience. So it was incredibly hard for us not to come together and to play. And obviously, the opera and the LPO was very creative and adventurous, trying to find a way just to bring art to as many people as possible. But it was a very different time. So it's glad I know I'm speaking for myself, but I'm incredibly glad that there's music just back in our community again, because it just feels so good to be back and to hear it and to see the joy on people's faces from experiencing it.
And speaking of joy on people's faces, the last of the opera presentations will be the beginning of April, and that'll be for Puccini's La Boheme, probably the most classic opera that you can imagine. It's you know I would imagine most people, it's one of the first operas they listen to when they're young, and because of its storyline is one that obviously it has a certain amount of sadness to it, but it is a real I guess you might say family favorite, one that through the ages always, it seems like every few years you got low bohème on the offering, and then you can also maybe occasionally have a Tosca, or perhaps if you're lucky, we might see a Turandot or an Aida or something like that. I guess that's reminiscent of the Italian opera, but Claire, we used to have a lot of French opera in New Orleans. We had obviously the French Opera House. Are you seemingly thinking about bringing any more of that? And also, since you're doing Die Walküre, question, any more Wagner? What's the story on that?
I would love to bring French opera, Italian opera, German opera. I love it all. I'm a Wagnerite myself. I spent 14 years at Seattle Opera, so I've done the Ring Cycle, Lohengrin, Tristan, Parsifal, all the great ones, and it'd be wonderful to be able to present those here in New Orleans. And I'm also a huge fan of French opera, and in fact, I'm not going to give away any clues, but for our next collaboration, Anwar and I are talking about perhaps a French opera to be done next year. So it's all in the works. I love it all. So hopefully we can get some great opera put on the stage. Wouldn't it be wonderful if the opera could get back to 6 or 7 productions per year, and then we could just have quite a variety?
I hope you have a lot of money because
that's exactly the key.
Because that's what you need in order to do 6 or 7.
Or even one Wagner.
Yes.
And we did some spectacular versions of some Wagner operas you might not think, like the Flying Dutchman. Yeah. They did a wonderful version of the Flying Dutchman, and I know Wagner gets sort of a bad rap from a lot of people because he wasn't not necessarily the nicest individual, not very nice to everybody, and there were a lot of problems, flaws in his character. But the music he left behind is very special, and as much as I try to differentiate myself from the man as opposed to the artist who left behind that beautiful music, we have to give him his due. Even in Israel, they are playing Wagner's music, thanks to a number of people who were forward thinking and said, you know what, we have to be able to move on from that and not hold that necessarily against them. Although we can't ever forget. I think that's also important. And that brings me now to a couple of questions. I'm gonna ask a few questions because we as a nation have been through a lot, and I think it's really important that we start to talk about a lot of more of representation of diversity in the arts, opportunities for people of color, etc. Obviously, this history of our country has been, I guess, something we're not necessarily able to be proud of in many ways. I mean, the Marian Anderson concert that was done, back during the era when the Daughters of the American Revolution wouldn't allow her to sing, etc. Was an ugly stain, a blot, if you will, on I think opera fans all over, and of course the fact that she was able to sing at the Lincoln Memorial was an obvious overture to try to make up for that. But there are a number, obviously, since the George Floyd incident, a lot of the rioting, etc. There's a lot of pushback now within the theater community to improve conditions, and also I think within the ranks of the classical arts as well. So, are there any programs that we have out there on where maybe you can talk about from the classical arts that are going to allow more people to be represented within the opera? And if so, what are we talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. On our season, we have some really wonderful programs that are really highlighting some underrepresented voices in the orchestral tradition. I want to speak about 2 specifically. One, we have a fantastic artist in residence who is a New Orleans native. Her name is Courtney Bryan, and she is a really, really fantastic composer, both in the orchestral world, but she also works in opera and does a whole lot of different things. So this is the second year of our partnership, and we're going to actually perform her work twice over the course of the season. Once in January, and that's going to be conducted by Thomas Wilkins, who's an African-American conductor who was most recently music director of the Omaha Symphony, but he's principal conductor of the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra and has a post in Boston and Indiana and Virginia, where he's from. So he really has this national profile that we are able to connect with him here in New Orleans on a consistent basis year in and year out. And he has this wonderful program that is both Courtney Bryan, Samuel Coleridge Taylor, who did, we're talking about ballet with the suite from the Hiawatha Ballet, which I think is really, really fantastic. And the other program that I wanted to talk about is actually this fall, and it's a program. Beethoven 3 is the anchor work on the program. So you talked about how wonderful Beethoven's music is. So it's his third symphony that we're going to be playing. But the new piece on the program is by a young African-American composer. His name is Carlos Simon, and he's from Atlanta, Georgia. And he wrote a piece called Portrait of a Queen, and it's actually going to be narrated by Tank from Tank and the Bangas. And it's really talking about the African-American experience told through the lens of a Black woman. And I really think that it's a fantastic opportunity for us to just tell multiple stories and add texture and have different voices and really bring to the table some music that we know and love, but also that we haven't heard, that's going to force us to think, that's going to force us to really expand our palette a bit and really allow us to step into space and highlight artists that maybe have not had those opportunities before. And one thing that I really love about this has always been a fabric of who we are as an organization, that we really think about how do we highlight our own, tell our own unique stories. And I'm glad that we're able to continue that this season.
Yeah. Claire, in opera, I think that there have been lots of opportunities for people of color to advance. Our own Alfred Richard from here, is considered a great voice for opera. And we've of course had people like Kathleen Battle, Jesse Norman, all of those voices, massive, and not to even mention people like Leontine Price. And we had, of course, several people, Shirley Barrett, et cetera, from New Orleans, who have added to that history. But again, I think one of the most important things is for kids to be exposed to the opera and to be able to see people like them on stage, et cetera. And I think that's so important. So are there any programs that you've got going for you that you can tell me about with the opera as well?
Thanks. I would love to. We actually just had a wonderful celebration about 2 weeks ago. I'm sure you know, Alan, that the Met just celebrated the very first Black composer to be presented on the Met Opera stage. And that was, of course, New Orleans' own Terence Blanchard, who wrote an opera based on Louisiana and Charles Blow's memoirs, Fire Shut Up on My Bones. It was a spectacular production. And we have Dookie Chase on our board. And the Chase Foundation sponsored the purchase of 100 tickets to see the live and HD performance from the Met for local students. So we had students from Xavier and Dillard and Loyola and a couple of high schools as well who came to see this production thanks to the generosity of the Chase Foundation. So that was really amazing. We're so happy to have been able to make that happen. And we do have a program coming up in collaboration with our Josephine performances in January that will be going out into the schools to both teach about the opera and teach about this amazing woman, Josephine Baker, who is an icon both for the United States as well as for France. I don't know if your audience knows, she's being interred in the cemetery. I wish I could remember the name of it. Maybe you can help me. The Cemetery of Honor in France, where it's she'll be the first American-born Black woman ever to be interred in this cemetery because of her work in World War II for the French government. So we're going to be doing some programs around that. And we're also collaborating with Opera Creole in January, which I'm very excited about. They're going to be putting together a program that's a celebration of Black women from Ida B. Wells to Kamala Harris. And this will be at the Pythian Theater in mid-January. Tickets aren't on sale yet, but they will go on sale at our website in the next month or so. And I think this is going to be a great experience of learning about the women who really formed the backbone to civil rights in this country. And we're really excited to present this with Opera Creole.
Yeah, and again, I know that Giovanna Joseph, who's associated with that particular group, has been for many years advocating that we really revisit our history and learn a lot more about it. I've been always, enthralled by the things she brings up, and of course, her daughter Aria has been involved in a number of the productions, et cetera. But it's very interesting to be able to see our history represented, and to see some of the people who were the composers who, I hate to say it, but who've been sort of swept away, that we don't really get to see their work performed on a regular basis. And so that's important too. Again, our guest tonight, Anwar Nasir from the Louisiana Philharmonic Orchestra, Clare Burovac from the New Orleans Opera Association. We're on NOLA Theater Talk. And again, it's not really theater so much tonight as much as it is talking about the cultural, the classical arts. But we hope that those of you out there who are able to be with us will appreciate the fact that there is a certain amount of theater in opera, and certainly part of what we're showing tonight is intended to enhance the overall perspective for people, maybe to appreciate the fact that opera is probably, to my way of thinking, the greatest art form, because it not only involves the classical playing of music, it involves theater on stage with makeup and full costumes, etc., and scenery, and of course also has a dramatic book, a libretto that guides the action. So all of those things combine to make theater, a part of what we know as opera, and opera would not survive without the classical support that it has as well. So, whether you're a Mozart fan, or whether or not you are perhaps a Verdi a traditionalist, or perhaps you maybe are from the French school, you're interested in some of the other pieces that might have been performed at the French Opera House. Keep in mind that the New Orleans Opera Association has been here through thick and thin to present all of these performances, and I mean they've been at the fore. I can tell you, Placido Domingo had one of his very earliest noted performances here in New Orleans, that he got noticed and got signed to Angel Records. I'd like to think part of that was my mother noticing and writing, you have to sign this guy to Angel Records. But, I'm not sure that she can take full credit for that, as much as I'd like to. But, just an amazing number of people. And of course, we mentioned Placido Domingo. They named the stage at the Mahalia Jackson Theater for Placido, because he had been, so much of a help in coming back from the debacle that was Katrina. And of course, our very own Sarah J. McMahon, who's been involved with many of the opera productions of late, it was Placido's protege, and owes a lot to him as well, on a personal note for her career. Anwar, we have a little bit of time left, and again, I know that the LPO had a couple of programs on. I assume you're going to maintain that, where a person who was interested in helping to support the LPO could essentially purchase some of the books, if you will, the music books that you all would pass out for the performances, etc. And I know he's sort of frozen right now, so hopefully he'll be able to hear what we're saying.
No, I can hear you.
Oh,
I can
good.
hear you.
Yeah. Okay. So, but in other words, if you wanted to buy the, I'm trying to think of a piece. Let's say the overture to the Thieving Magpie, that you could actually buy that for the orchestra and would have your name emblazoned on it, so that when everybody took out their music, that they would see your name as a sponsor for that music, and that you would have. Are they still doing that, or
not as much? We're not doing as much commissioning this year. We have one piece that we're doing by a local composer and arranger named Jay Weigel.
Yes.
I'm sure many of your audience knows. It's called Water's Gravity, I believe. So there are only a very few amount of things that we do like that going forward. But so that's the only opportunity that we have this year. So it's not something that we just, put out for any and everyone to get behind. But I think that it's just we try to make sure that it's really special and personal to someone. So if someone is very interested in, having their name in the score, then, definitely reach out to us, because we would love to have a conversation about it.
And you just had the Halloween Spooktacular, right, on
Absolutely.
Saturday, and what do they have, like Night on Ball Mountain and the Funeral March of a Marionette, and several other pieces, Danse Macabre. I mean,
Yes.
so there we have a situation where the kids get involved and the kids can listen to the music, and of course some people will say, well, that was Alfred Hitchcock's music, wasn't it? Funeral March of a Marionette. But
Yeah.
the point is that we hear that music and sometimes don't make that connection as to what it is. And again, as I mentioned, when I first went to Tulane University and was able to hear the orchestra play, it was a revelation. It was something that was a piece, a moment in time that was captured that I think that I'll always have and always will connect to. So it's real important to connect to those things. Unfortunately, your opening City Park venture the week before that was canceled due to inclement
No,
weather that didn't happen, unfortunately,
we just moved it
perhaps,
to Sunday. We moved
yeah,
it. We were able to have it at City Park this previous Sunday, not this previous Sunday, 2 Sundays ago,
yeah.
and still had a very great turnout. We had from the littlest of the little kids all the way up to adults that have been with us for for years, and it was a good time to be able
Yeah.
to get together and just bring some music back to the city. So it was a really, really fun night under the stars there in City Park at the Peristyle.
And I'm going to put you, I don't mean to put you on the spot necessarily, but I'd like to get a little. Are there any pieces that you'd like to see the orchestra do? I mean, I know that's not your bailiwick. I think that's probably more along the Carlos Miguel Prieto, his responsibilities as far as I go. But there are any things that you'd like to see them do on a more regular basis or whatever? Any kind of music, or or are you just going to let them sort of run it? I mean,
I mean, so yeah, I mean, I have a great relationship with our music director, and we get to, every time we talk, we always, we bounce ideas off of each other because I just by nature listen to a lot of music, and having worked in this industry for a while now, I get to hear a lot of music performed live, and I think it's almost like a gift and a curse, right? Because there's so much music in the repertoire that you want to be able to hear the music over and over and over again. But when you do that, you don't have space for new music to come into your life. So I try to make sure that there's a good balance between the two. I feel incredibly fortunate here that there's really two of my favorite pieces are actually on the season that I'm excited about. One is Stravinsky's The Firebird that we'll be doing, and the other is Dvorak's New World Symphony, his Symphony Number 9. They're just two beautiful pieces of music that I think really, really tell unique stories. I've heard the story about the Firebird kind of being the LPO's theme song of sorts, about a bird rising from the ashes and being able to flourish, and it's just such a beautiful piece of music. And Dvorak's New World is obviously it was written here in America, and it tells a story about forging into new spaces and really tying into American rhythms. And I think that it has a beautiful connection here, I think, to the way that this city just always finds a way to get through and really highlight its people. So I feel fortunate that I have two of my favorite pieces of music on this season. So I'm excited to hear them.
Claire, what are your favorite operas that you'd like to maybe see on your wish list?
Oh my gosh, that's such a hard question, but thanks for asking. Well, I will say, Bohème is there's a reason Bohème is one of the best loved operas of all time, and it's such a great masterpiece. I adore Puccini, and for your audience who might be more of a theater audience than an opera audience, I might say go see Rent at the Sanger in November, and then come see us in April, and let us know what you think about how Jonathan Larson took the Bohème Puccini story and turned it into Rent. I love Wagner. I love German repertoire. Der Rosenkavalier is one of my most favorite operas of all time. So if we can find the money, that's definitely going on our stage. But the opera repertoire, we have 400 years of great compositions. So trying to choose from amongst all that is the most difficult and the most wonderful job that a woman could have. So I feel very fortunate.
And again, you have to walk that tightrope, if you will, that delicate balance between what do you get people to come in to see, the Toscas and the La Bohèmes, and and then what can you afford to put on? I mean, if you try to put on Turandot or you try to put on Aida every year, that's a budget buster, isn't it?
Yes,
I
absolutely.
mean, so you have to, occasionally you have to go to the the Bohème, which is basically 4 people, although they do have big choruses. I understand that, but for the most part, it's 4 people that are on stage, and the point being that that you can afford it a little bit more regularly. I happen to love Tosca too. I mean, I'm a big fan of that work, but getting the right person in for the role, is important. Whether it's Cavaradossi or Tosca or of course Scarpia.
That's key.
And you've got to get the right ones, because they all have to be equally, balanced in terms of carrying the opera at any one particular point. You've got to have a particularly menacing Scarpia, or it doesn't sell, and you've got to have Cavaradossi and Tosca have that love for each other that you see expressed early on. I also, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say too, New Orleans, and you referenced this earlier when you talked about Alfred. There are so many amazing singers who have come out of New Orleans. I don't know what it is about this city. There's something in the water that produces great opera singers. And when you think about someone like Lisette Oropeza, who is arguably the hottest soprano in the world right now, I mean, bar none, and she's from right here in Louisiana. And Brian Email, absolutely. So I've written to Lizette's manager and I said, what does she want to do? Tell me what opera she's dying to do, and we will put it on here in New Orleans. So just give us a date and a title, and let's bring her here.
I'm going to also put another plant a little seed, if you will. I don't know whether or not it'll grow or not, but for many years, the New York Opera Company, the New York City Opera Company, put on a spectacular version of Mephistophele, which was done, of course, with our own New Orleans Norman Traeger.
That's right.
And of course, when I think he talked to Sir Rudolph Bing, he said, "Why don't you have me over at the Met?" And he says, "Why should we do that? There's a perfectly great production over at the New York City Opera." But the point being that I think that that it would be wonderful to be able to see, and I know we're not going to see Phyllis doing that role, but to see somebody pay homage to Norman Traeger. I don't know how old he would have been now, but I'm sure it's getting close to 100 if he's not already past that 100-year mark. But that we might be able to honor him in some way to do that. And I'd love. I would love
to do that. Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And just I'm not sure you're aware that our gala concert is also going to feature his granddaughter, Emily Traeger.
Oh, she's great. Yes.
So she'll be here in February.
Okay, yeah, because I've actually done a show with both Phyllis and her. During the pandemic, we were talking, and they were performing. So that was a really special moment for me to be able to do with that. We have just a few minutes left, and I want to thank you again for being with me tonight. It's very important that we can make those connections. The symphony, the opera, the ballets. There are lots of different ballet companies out here, but a lot of them owe a lot of what they do in their performances at the opera, and I guess in terms of the LPO, Anwar, we're looking to see some people just gathering together and looking around inside that theater. The Orpheum is a very special theater, and it's unusual, the configuration, is it not? The way that the stage points the way it does, it's different than it is at some of the way that the entire structure is situated, right? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. I believe that there was after Katrina, because we obviously know that the Orpheum flooded and was out of commission for quite some time, and they made some adjustments to the theater to make it the floor can actually raise completely flat, so that way they can have all kinds of events there. But what that means is that there's the proscenium on the stage is a little bit different than what you would have in a traditional opera house or a concert hall, in that sense. So it is a little bit different, but I'm excited to be back there. It's also very vertical as well.
That's it, and it's different than a lot of the other. There's not a lot of depth to the stage, etc. And it is more vertical, and that's it makes it a little bit of a different kind of stage than you see in most of the larger houses now.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. But I think that it works because it makes it, everyone has a more intimate seat. Which I think is really, really fantastic.
And the Mahalia Jackson is very expansive. I know that I remember being in the Mahalia Jackson at one particular performance, and there was a guy all the way up in the upper left-hand I guess it'd be the right as you're looking at it from the stage, but for me, as I'm looking at it from the upper left-hand corner, he says, "This is the best spot acoustically in the entire hall," and he pointed it out, and I'm going to trust him on that as far as it goes. But again, I want to thank you all for being with me tonight. Thank you again. I want to again thank Clare Burovac, ladies first, again, as I said, Anwar Nasir for being here again. We hope that the cultural arts will continue to do well for everybody. That people will start to come back to see the opera, to see the LPO, and many, many, many more times that we'll be able to maybe gather and talk about the cultural arts. And again, I want to ask you all both to stick around while I say goodbye to everybody else. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our NOLA Theater Talk for tonight. And again, I want to thank you all for being here. You can always catch it in the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group and on the theatercriticism.com Facebook page, and also on my own YouTube channel. Again, thanks again to Anwar and for Clare for being here with us. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, I will see you at the theater.